I think we can probably just slide right in. Henry can talk about some really exciting stuff that we've been talking about a bird working group here at GPCN.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cliff and Lindsay. Yeah, so when I got plugged into GPCN, I was looking through the website and, I became curious about why there wasn't a bird working group because, as Shammy mentioned, grassland birds are the most precipitously declining guild of birds across North America. I think that I've been really inspired in this meeting by as I mentioned, the partnership and the collaboration, what's going on with the prairie dogs and black-footed ferrets, kind of stuff, and then also with the bison. And I think it would be great to get a group together of people who are invested in bird conservation. So that was the main reason that this was added to the agenda. I thought it would be an interesting topic to broach to gauge people's interest in potentially getting involved in a GPCN working committee for birds. I guess maybe we can open the floor and see if anyone has any, any interest or, potential connections for that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's interest. Maybe they want to raise their hands.
That's fine.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Andrew, there we got a hand up. Is that just a hand raise, or would you like to say something, Andrew?
Sure, I'll say something. Thank you, Cliff. This is, well, firstly, this is just a fantastic meeting to attend, but so I'll introduce myself quickly since I'm probably new to most of these folks. But yeah, my name is Andrew Dreeland. I'm a PhD candidate at Northern Illinois University, and I'm co-advised by Holly Jones and Andy Boyce at the Smithsonian. And so people I know here best are folks who work around the American Prairie and Fort Belknap area, and all of my graduate research is on how prairie dogs as a keystone species shape nest demography for grassland birds. So I think a lot about these kind of interactions between grassland birds and the species that GPCN currently focuses on. And Henry, like you, I had this same realization of scrolling through the GPCN website, and I was like, oh, we need a bird working group. I am up to my gills in dissertation research right now, but I would be remiss not to, raise my hand and throw my name into the ring to just be involved, and would love to know more about what's going on. And anything I could do to help would be, happy to help.
Yeah, that's great. I actually know Andy from our old PhD days in the bird world. We were both tropical bird people. So, I think that I think it's a really timely moment to try to get this group together, and I would love to have you involved. I mean, really, anybody who wants to be involved, I think the more people, the merrier. And I guess the model that I think would be, potentially useful is a similar model to what's been done with the bison or with the prairie dogs, where we can get a more regional or multi-state level perspective. I think that one thing I in terms of split and American Prairie, I mean, we're kind of doing our own things, but I feel like there's plenty of room for collaboration, and this group seems like a great forum to start some of that. So again, for those who are interested, I can send you my email, Andrew, and we can chat about it. But I have a couple other people who've expressed interest, and I would think that it would probably start out being something that's pretty low lift, maybe like a quarterly meeting, or just a forum where we can start to think about broader geographic scale strategies for grassland bird conservation, and bring together people who are working in different regions to try to supercharge those efforts. So
that would be super. Thanks, Henry.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And so I'll just drop my email in the chat for anybody who is interested, but maybe doesn't want to put up their hand right now. Feel free to email me, and I'll connect you with Henry. And maybe we'll move on. And so Kate has a little tidbit that she'd like to share with us. Kate, are you on?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna get my presentation up and hope that all works out.
Great, we have you.
Great. Yeah, I'm doing the like share portion of screen. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Great. Let me do this. Okay. Great. Is that still visible to everyone?
Yeah, looks good.
Yep.
Super. Okay, so I'm Kate Wilkins. I'm the Regional Conservation Director for Colorado at Denver Zoo. And today I'm really excited to share some of the results from my postdoctoral work on the impacts of intensified drought to grasslands and shrublands. This is work from the International Drought Experiment, which involves a network of researchers from around the world. And I'd like to especially acknowledge one of the PIs and lead co-authors on this work, Dr. Melinda Smith at Colorado State University. So the inspiration for the International Drought Experiment was to improve understanding of ecosystem response to extreme drought, because global droughts are predicted to increase and become more extreme, especially those lasting up to 1 year. And so while drought research is fairly well documented, few experiments have systematically tested how ecosystems will respond to the predicted levels of extremity. And so the International Drought Experiment sought to change this through coordinated experiments across different ecosystems around the world by implementing an extreme drought. And so what do I mean when I say extreme drought? If we look at the historic distribution of precipitation anywhere around the world, for the International Drought Experiment, we were defining extremity as reducing the total annual precipitation to something less than the first percentile of the historic record, so something along the lines of a 1 in 100 year drought. And using this definition, we sent out a call to researchers around the world to help answer the following questions. First, how do ecosystems respond to 1 year of extreme drought globally? And second, does that response to drought differ between grasslands and shrublands? And we used above ground net primary production as the metric for drought response because of its importance to the global carbon cycle, and it was the easiest metric to standardize across sites. In addition, we focused on 1 year because 1 year droughts tend to have the highest occurrence globally across different ecosystem types. So we had 100 sites that met our criteria for inclusion for this, including 74 grassland sites around the world, as well as 26 shrubland sites. And due to time, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about the methods. I'll just say that sites implemented similar methods using a passive shelter design, as shown here in some of the pictures from some of our sites. And they all collected peak live biomass as a proxy for above ground net primary production. So some of the results, I'd like to reiterate that these were passive shelters that are at the whim of ambient precipitation. And so we looked at the ambient precipitation in the 365 days before the biomass harvest. And if this value was less than or equal to mean annual precipitation, we were fairly confident that those sites had implemented the level of extremity that we were looking for. And so we designated those sites as experiencing an extreme drought. However, if that ambient precipitation was greater than mean annual precipitation, we designated those sites as having a nominal drought or something more along the lines of what might be expected based on that historic record. And so I'd like to walk through this graph before revealing some of the results that we saw. The filled in green circles represent the average for grassland sites that had that extreme drought. Whereas the open circles represent the average for grassland sites with nominal drought, and the shrublands follow the same pattern but are represented by triangles. On the x-axis, we include the drought response, which we calculated as the natural log of the ANPP in the drought plots divided by the ANPP in the control plots, and that 0, where the dotted line is, means that there was no difference between the above ground net primary production in the drought plots versus those control plots that were just receiving ambient precipitation. And the negative values, anything negative, means that there was an actual reduction in above ground net primary production in those drought plots. And that gray rectangle there shows the range of above ground net primary production reductions, anywhere from 12 to 19%, due to drought that was found by meta-analyses that looked at drought experiments that were done all around the world. And so overall, we saw a 35% reduction in AMPP when we saw those extreme droughts across all habitat types. And for the extreme droughts in shrublands, those reductions in AMPP were in line with what those previous meta-analyses had found, as well as the sites that experienced that more kind of like normal drought. It was in line with what previous studies had found. So I would like to highlight specifically what's going on in grasslands, which is fairly concerning. And we saw almost double the losses in grasslands when there was an extreme drought, which is what's predicted to happen in the future, compared to grassland sites that experienced that nominal drought, or even any of our shrubland sites. And so the main takeaway here is that losses in grasslands nearly doubled with extreme drought. And this is likely to have negative global consequences for carbon cycling and implications for wildlife, livestock, and human populations that rely on plant production. However, we can help to increase grassland resilience through all the work that everyone here has demonstrated by restoring biodiversity and human connections to these landscapes. So these are some of our funders that I'd like to acknowledge. And yeah, thanks so much for listening to that brief overview of some of the results that we saw.
Great, thank you so much, Kate. That's, yeah, really insightful. Does anybody have any sort of follow-up questions for her?
So I just saw a question about, I'm happy to share papers right now. So this work is getting ready to be published in PNAS. It's just embargoed right now. So as soon as that comes out, I'm happy to share it with the network more broadly.
So keep your eye on your e-newsletter, because we'll make sure that we share it through there.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. No questions, but I think climate and climate change is certainly a cross-cutting topic in all of the working groups, I think, and where things are heading. So this is another piece of that information that's going to be helpful to that work. Lindsay, do you want to go to the Mentimeter and the polls and
yeah, I'm
see
just
where we're at?
Just trying to pull it up here.
Lindsay, while you're doing that, I just wanted to let folks know with the Great Plains Conservation Network, it started with a listserv. That's a sort of an archaic name now, but it's a pretty robust group of membership now and growing. But we need to continue to grow. I mean, this is an information resource, science like Kate just described, really getting this information out to the masses to try to synergize and partner and have that knowledge to help with on the ground conservation is largely our efforts, our mission. So if you all could please share the GPCN link to our website, which has a lot of great information on the working groups, on the research, on what we're doing, and have people sign up. I mean, the idea is let's get more into the network, continental scale, and then we can make a difference together. So anyway, it looks like Lindsay's ready.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, Shamia, and we always need more people. We're also thinking about a riparian working group, but don't have the chairing role kind of figured out. So we need somebody to lead the working groups, people like Shami and Christy and Anna, to keep things on track and get the work done. And so if you want to volunteer, we're always open to those suggestions, and look forward to your participation, however that may be. But definitely share with your networks.
Great. Yeah, so I've just put up the lovely word cloud that we have. Thanks for everybody who has participated. If you haven't yet, feel free to add your thoughts in there. It's live, so things should just pop up and populate. So I'll maybe just let this start our free range discussion, and maybe, yeah, some of these words will kick off some thoughts from folks.
Yeah. You can probably just jump in or raise your hands. You can be polite, but we're pretty informal here. And we do have a stop at noon, but if there's interest, we can go beyond. So I'll just open up the floor on that. So I have one issue. And that's just the impact of renewable energy developments within grassland ecosystems. It's becoming an issue. Some people are actually lobbying to open up. In Alberta, we have a restriction for developing on native grassland, but that doesn't stop them from putting 42 kilometers of chain link fence in a prime pronghorn migration corridor, which is on a speck of cultivated land within a sea of grass. And so, we have these issues erupting and getting perhaps worse. And so I'm just wondering what people's experience is in that area, and if we should be sharing a lot more of those. We have a process in Alberta underway right now to kind of pause renewable energy for the wrong reasons, but it perhaps is a time to kind of cement the things that need to happen to make sure renewable energy development isn't further destroying the grasslands we all love.
Can I add something?
Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. With our work advocating the reintroduction of buffalo on public lands in the foothills of Alberta, of course, being Alberta, we are very aware of oil and gas development. And currently, I live in the Crozets Pass. So a big issue here, of course, is the attempts by the Australian mining conglomerates to develop coal mines in the mountains and eastern slopes of Alberta. It's kind of a wedge issue right now. We had some victories earlier, but it seems that with the change in government, those victories are now in question. So, resource development, I think, is definitely a major issue for us. And one of the big issues, of course, is water quality and water availability from the watersheds on the eastern slopes, which will be detrimentally affected particularly by open pit coal mining. And of course, regarding climate change, any of the industrial developments that we're witnessing, including accelerated clear cutting, are going to detrimentally affect watershed in the future, which is, I think, a critical factor. Watershed is a major concern right now. So anyway, I just wanted to throw those concerns in.
Shammy.
Yeah, Tony, thank you. That's super helpful. We really appreciate all your insights on this call. I'm interested in who put intersectionality in here because, yeah, I'm thinking connective landscapes, but maybe this has a different meaning. By the way, I think this exercise is really, really great. And it's pretty cool to see this graphic come out this way. But can anyone speak to that? What is that? And what does
that
mean?
was me, Grace. I said intersectionality. It's like I'm only a recent graduate from CSU, so I'm still like brand new to all of this stuff. But one thing I've noticed a lot in my education and the work that I've been doing this year is just that intersection of social justice, especially in regards to indigenous peoples, and how that goes hand in hand with conservation efforts, and how, you know, this isn't just, we aren't just worrying about conservation. We're worrying about broader issues that impact people in ways that we may not necessarily connect to grasslands, but it does make a big difference. And I think integrating those things together and recognizing how all of these subjects can overlap with each other and intersect is something important to do.
Oh, that is awesome, Grace. Well said. And yeah, that's really, really important. I mean, it's sort of, the mountains are sort of the sexier, of the ecosystems. The plains, are so threatened, but they tend to not be as considered because of the flora and fauna. But the intersectionality and the bias to other landscapes and the discrimination that we know happens. It'd be great to talk with you offline on how we could maybe incorporate your ideas into our work. And I'm really happy you could make the call. But with your learning and your education, that that would be really helpful to our efforts.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd love to get to talk with you about that sometime later, Shane.
And there's lots of good work on the social side happening. And so it's kind of a cross-cutting theme, how to work with people, how to influence people, how to listen to people. Because this isn't about one group or the other. We need everybody pulling the same way, whether it's ranchers, whether it's indigenous people, whether it's ourselves, even sodbusters, that there's things that they could do or not do, which would improve things out there. Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks. This has been great to hear all these updates. When I was just thinking, why is GPCN valuable to me? I'm thinking, what makes it unique, different? There are other Great Plains-based focused collaboratives out there as well. Central Grasslands Roadmap, which I actually haven't been personally involved with, but what makes GPCN valuable and unique? And it seems like, it started out long ago as a vision of rewilding large landscapes within at the time, Northern Great Plains. And, there are different scales of restoration needs, from big intact, keeping grass intact landscape perspectives, from grassland birds over large landscapes, all sorts of things. And what I've been hearing today, which is so exciting, is updates from specific places on the ground where there's a focus on putting all the pieces back. And that's a subset of what we need across the entire Great Plains, of course. But it's a really important one that has kind of always been the focus of NPCN and then GPCN, the kind of stuff that's a little bit harder, large prairie dog complex restoration, bison restoration. And it's so exciting to see, Southern Plains Land Trust, American Prairie, all the work on tribal lands like Fort Belknap's, restoring both bison and prairie dogs and ferrets in one large landscape, removing fencing, et cetera, restoring plowed land back into a native prairie. These are what I find so inspiring about Great Plains Conservation Network, that remains unique and difficult, but also gaining incredible traction and ground compared to, long ago when you could get threatened if you talk about some of these issues, to today where it's happening in multiple places on large landscapes. And I find today's meeting to be incredibly inspiring. And that's what I get out of it. I just wanted to share that it's just so exciting to see this.
Thanks, Jonathan. So you want to go to the next one, Lindsay, and then we'll wrap up. Some of the same things we heard today. Not the strong indigenous conservation collaboration on the first slide, a lot of scattered. So does that mean we're kind of doing a lot of the things that should be done? And these are kind of would be great to add if we can find the resources and the people to do it. Any thoughts on which of these would you focus on as a start, either as a new topic or as a cross-cutting theme?